Hi, I'm David Reed, and today I will be discussing nonverbal communication. According to the textbook, Looking Out, Looking In, quote, some social scientists have argued that 93% of the emotional impact of a message comes from nonverbal sources. Others have argued more convincingly that the figure is closer to 65%. Whatever the precise figure, the point remains. Nonverbal communication plays an important role in how we make sense of one another's behavior. End quote. Learning to convey the correct message through nonverbal means is essential to becoming an effective communicator. Nonverbal communication is defined as, quote, messages expressed by non-linguistic means, end quote. This means that anything that involves words, spellings, hand signs, etc. is ruled out. Alder and Proctor point out, however, that, quote, our definition allows us to explore the non-linguistic dimensions of the spoken word. For example, volume, rate, pitch, and so on, end quote. Nonverbal communication may also include factors like physical appearance, environment, body positioning, hand gestures, expression, body language, and so on. Peter F. Drucker once said, the most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. This quote illustrates the importance of nonverbal communication, both on the giving side and the receiving side. The textbook says of importance of nonverbal communication, quote, nonverbal encoding and decoding skills are a strong predictor of popularity, attractiveness, socio-emotional well-being, and so on. Good nonverbal communicators are more persuasive than people who are less skilled, and they may have a greater chance of success in settings ranging from careers to poker games to romance. End quote. Being proficient in nonverbal communication illustrates a high emotional intelligence, which indicates a higher chance of success in multiple areas. An interesting exchange happened between a writer and a movie producer, Sam Goldwyn. The writer said to Goldwyn, Mr. Goldwyn, I'm telling you a sensational story. I'm only asking for an opinion, and you fall asleep. To which Goldwyn replied, isn't sleeping an opinion? This illustrates an important point about nonverbal communication. Even when people try their best to not communicate anything, there is communication going on. As the book says, suppose you tried not to communicate any messages at all. What would you do? Stop talking? Close your eyes? Curl up into a ball? Leave the room? You can probably see that even these behaviors communicate messages, that you're avoiding contact. End quote. No matter what behavior you are using, there is communicative value to it. There's always communication going out, even if that communication is not intentional. Nonverbal communication is the most effective when communicating emotions or attitudes than more concrete messages such as matters of fact, past or future tenses, an imaginary idea, or conditional statements. These kind of messages run into issues when the communication is not done face-to-face, rather through text, email, or other forms of written messages. For the most part, nonverbal communication is impossible to decipher through these forms of communicating. To try to help with these issues, electronic text correspondents have developed symbols like emojis and emoticons to help ease the communication process, but even these can be flawed. As the book states, quote, it's important to understand that these markers are also identity management tools, end quote. For example, most writers do not laugh out loud when they type LOL, and they're most likely not rolling on the floor when they type ROFL. Most of the time, the writer is trying to give an impression rather than express their true actions and emotions. These tools are helpful, but they are still not nearly as adequate as face-to-face communication. There are many functions of nonverbal communication, such as repeating, complementing, substituting, accenting, regulating, and contradicting. Nonverbal repeating involves repeating your verbal instruction with a nonverbal instruction. The example the book gives is if As if somebody is asking for directions, you could tell them to go north 2 blocks, then point north. This helps to emphasize your point and increases the chances of the receiver remembering the directions. Complementing essentially means that the expression you are giving matches your verbal message. For example, if you are thanking somebody for something you did, your face should show gratitude as well. For example, with a smile. Substitution involves replacing a verbal response with a gesture. For example, if somebody were to ask a question that you do not know the answer to, you could give a shrug instead of saying that you do not know. Accenting is used to emphasize certain parts of verbal speech. Much like we can use italics to emphasize words or phrases in our written speech, we can use voice volume and inflection to add emphasis. For example, you could say, "It was your idea to go to the park today, not mine." Lastly, changingminds.org describes the contradictory function as, quote, sending a nonverbal message that disagrees with what is being said. This can be done deliberately in order to confuse. It may also happen subconsciously when lying, end quote. An example could be saying no while nodding, or yelling that you aren't mad in an obviously angry tone. All in all, in conclusion, nonverbal communication is an essential form of interpersonal communication in all of its forms and can help us convey all the messages we want to get out. Thank you.